The black sedan moved through the early morning haze of northern Tehran, a ghost in a city unaware it was holding its breath. Inside, drive Arash Kaviani, the single most important figure in Iran's atomic ambitions, reviewed schematics on a secured tablet. He was more than a scientist. He was the architect, the keeper of secrets, the man who held the entire nuclear program in his mind. He was also a dead man. He just didn't know it yet. At 6:43 a.m. local time, the world as we know it tilted on its axis. The initial reports from Iranian state media were a torrent of confusion and contradiction. A gas pipeline explosion, a terrorist bombing, a traffic accident involving a munitions truck. But the truth, seeping through the cracks of state censorship, was infinitely more precise and far more terrifying. This was no accident. This was a message. A decapitation strike delivered with surgical lethality. The vehicle carrying drive Kaviani wasn't destroyed by a clumsy car bomb. It was vaporized. Intelligence sources now confirm the attack was carried out by a high-velocity, inert projectile, likely a variant of the R-9X flying Ginsu missile, launched from a drone loitering invisibly miles above the city. There was minimal collateral damage. The target was eliminated with an almost supernatural precision that bears the unmistakable signature of only two intelligence agencies on Earth working in concert: Israel's Mossad and the American Central Intelligence Agency. Hours later, the confirmation came. A grim-faced official on state television announced the martyrdom of Dr. Arash Kaviani at the hands of the Zionist entity and the Great Satan. The statement was boilerplate rhetoric, but the fury behind it was palpable. It concluded with a vow that has now echoed in every capital across the globe. A promise of crushing, historic, and unforgettable revenge. The question is no longer if Tehran will retaliate. The questions are how, where, and when the first blow will fall. The fuse has been lit. A countdown to a wider war has begun, and the world is now watching the clock. To understand the magnitude of this event, you must first understand the man. Arash Kaviani was not just another scientist. He was the ghost in Iran's nuclear machine, the direct successor to Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was himself assassinated in 2020. Kaviani was the visionary. He was the institutional memory and the driving force behind every centrifuge that spun, every gram of uranium enriched. Educated in the West, with a doctorate in particle physics from a prestigious European university, he was a paradox. A man who understood the Western world intimately, yet dedicated his life to creating the one weapon he believed would secure Iran's permanent immunity from it. He operated in the deepest shadows, his name known only to the highest echelons of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Supreme Leader's Office. He consolidated disparate and competing elements of the program: the weaponization teams, the enrichment experts, the missile engineers, under a single, unified command structure. His command. His death is not a setback for the program. It's a potential system-wide collapse. He was the central node. He held the keys. Previous assassinations targeted key scientists, which were painful but ultimately replaceable losses. But this was different. This was an attack on the program's brain. Imagine trying to finish a grand symphony after the composer has been killed, leaving behind only scattered, half-finished notes. That is the challenge now facing Tehran. They have the instruments, they have the musicians, but the conductor is gone. The strategic calculus behind this operation is audacious, bordering on the reckless. For years, Western intelligence has operated on a strategy of attrition, sabotage, cyber attacks, and targeted killings designed to delay, not destroy, Iran's nuclear progress. This strike signals a radical and dangerous departure from that doctrine. This is a clear move from containment to decapitation. The message from Washington and Tel Aviv, though unspoken, is deafening. We will not allow you to cross the threshold. We will cut the head off the snake before it can strike. But in killing the mastermind, have they also killed any chance for diplomacy? Have they cornered a wounded and enraged regime, leaving it with no option but to lash out with everything it has? Intelligence reports are now being leaked from sources within Vienna, where nuclear talks have long been stalled. These reports are chilling. They suggest drive. Kaviani was not merely refining existing processes. He was on the verge of a breakthrough. A new, faster, and far more concealable method of uranium enrichment that would have rendered most international inspections obsolete. He was weeks, perhaps days, away from giving the regime the final, irreversible piece of the puzzle. The strike wasn't just punitive. It was a desperate, last-minute move to stop the doomsday clock from striking midnight. But a new question now haunts intelligence agencies. Was he the only one who knew? Or is his successor, trained in secret, now holding that final key? The fallout from the Tehran strike is cascading across the globe, forcing nations to choose sides in a conflict that is escalating by the hour. In Tehran, the mood is apocalyptic. Footage smuggled out of the country shows hardline members of the Iranian parliament chanting, "Death to America! Death to Israel!" The supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has convened an emergency session of the Supreme National Security Council. There is no longer a debate between moderates and hardliners. The assassination of Kaviani has unified the regime in a singular cry for vengeance. In Washington and Tel Aviv, an unnerving silence has fallen. Officially, there is no comment, no confirmation, no denial. It is a textbook policy of strategic ambiguity, designed to create uncertainty and leave Iran guessing. But behind the scenes, the tension is unbearable. The Pentagon has moved the USS Harry S. Truman carrier strike group from the Mediterranean towards the Persian Gulf. U.S. bases across Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf states are now at FORCECON Delta, the highest possible state of alert. This is a high-stakes gamble. The architects of this operation are betting that the Iranian regime, despite its furious rhetoric, is a rational actor. They believe that decapitating the nuclear program will create enough internal chaos and technical disruption to force Tehran back from the brink, that the fear of a full-scale retaliatory war with the U.S. and Israel will temper their response. They are betting that Iran will ultimately swallow this bitter pill. But this bet is being placed on a table where a single miscalculation could trigger a regional inferno. The world is not standing still. In Moscow, the Kremlin has condemned the act of international terrorism, offering diplomatic support to Tehran. In Beijing, the foreign ministry has called for calm and restraint, while subtly blaming American aggression for the crisis. China and Russia see an opportunity here to further wedge themselves into the Middle East, to expose the limits of American power, and to rally smaller nations against what they portray as Western lawlessness. The global chessboard is being reset in real time. The economic shockwaves are already being felt. The price of Brent crude oil has skyrocketed over 15% in a matter of hours on fears of a disruption to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which nearly a third of the world's seaborne oil passes. Global markets are in a nosedive. This is no longer a distant, regional conflict. Its consequences are now arriving at your gas pump and in your retirement portfolio. But the most dangerous development is unfolding in the shadows. A new, highly credible intelligence report, confirmed by 3 separate NATO agencies, has just landed on the desks of world leaders. It states that the IRGC's elite Quads force has activated its global network of sleeper cells. Operatives in Europe, South America, and even North America have received go orders. Simultaneously, Iran's formidable proxy network, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militias in Iraq and Syria have been placed on their highest ever alert status. The threat is no longer confined to the Persian Gulf. It is now diffuse, global, and imminent. The wait for retaliation is over. The first countermove is already in motion. We are now on the precipice. The next 24 to 48 hours will determine the course of the 21st century. Tehran's response will come, and it will likely fall into one of 3 catastrophic scenarios. Each is a gateway to a wider, more devastating war. Scenario 1. Asymmetric retaliation. This is the most likely, and perhaps the most difficult to counter. Iran unleashes its proxies. Hezbollah fires a barrage of its 150,000 rockets at northern Israel. Houthi drones and missiles target Saudi oil facilities and international shipping in the Red Sea. IRGC-backed militias in Iraq and Syria launch swarms of suicide drones at U.S. bases. Simultaneously, a massive cyber attack targets Western financial institutions, power grids, and port authorities, creating chaos far from the battlefield. This strategy seeks to inflict 1,000 cuts, making a direct, conventional, U.S. response difficult, without triggering an even greater escalation. Scenario 2. A direct, conventional strike. This is the high-risk, high-reward option for Iran, a brazen, undeniable act of war. They could launch a volley of their advanced Segil ballistic missiles at a major Israeli city like Tel Aviv, or at the U.S. Fifth Fleet's headquarters in Bahrain. The Patriot and Iron Dome defense systems are effective, but they are not impenetrable. Even a single missile getting through would cause mass casualties and make a massive U.S.-Israeli military response not just possible, but politically mandatory. This is the path to an all-out, state-on-state war that would engulf the entire region. Scenario 3. The nuclear declaration. This is Iran's ultimate trump card. In this scenario, Tehran forgoes an immediate military response. Instead, the supreme leader announces to the world that Iran is formally withdrawing from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, expelling all international inspectors, and immediately beginning enrichment of uranium to 90% weapons-grade purity. This is the checkmate move. It dares the world to act. It forces a choice upon the United States and Israel. Either launch a full-scale invasion to destroy the now unmonitored program, a war with incalculable costs, or accept the reality of a nuclear-armed Iran. Each of these paths leads to a darker, more unstable world than the one we lived in just yesterday. The assassination of Dr. Arash Kaviani was not the final chapter in the West's shadow war with Iran. It was the explosive first page of a new and far more dangerous one. Decisions are being made right now in war rooms in Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Washington that will have consequences for generations. The pieces are in motion, and they cannot be recalled. We are in uncharted territory. Stay with us. Global Crisis Radar is your frontline source for this rapidly developing story. We will cut through the noise and bring you the critical analysis you need. Subscribe to the channel and activate all notifications. You will not want to miss our next update as this crisis unfolds. The world is watching, and so are we.